Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of the Ask Lindsay interview series. This really is Ask Torben, though, because I am not the co-founder of a company or the CEO of a blockchain firm. So, welcoming today Torben Anderson. He is the co-founder and CEO of Rewired.one, which is a ambitious and visionary consulting firm, also in a stage of growth right now, helping blockchain companies strategize, build, and accelerate their products. So, Torben, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show. How is your Thursday going?
Hey, Lindsay, great to be on. Yeah, really, really interesting Thursday so far. But it's only just 9 o'clock here in California, so just getting started. Yeah.
Early morning, full day ahead,
Yeah.
putting fires out, morning tasks.
Yes.
And so we can dive right into the questions. Torben, maybe if you want to touch into a little bit about Rewired.one's growth phase you're in right now. I know there's some transitions going on.
Yeah, I think maybe before I do that, it might be good just to give some history. So my background is in technology, but also a lot around business change, because in the corporate world, we don't get a lot into companies unless there is, a willingness and a transformation program that goes with that. So a lot of my history is in that transformation space, digital transformation, change. Particularly banking, investment, financial services, and central banking. And I'm really grateful for that career prior to starting Rewired 5 years ago. Together with Brendan Ross, who was the co-founder at the time, we started it 5 years ago. As you said, we're in a major pivot right now. And it's kind of down to the new structure of the company in the next coming years to build new products. I think we've been in that learning phase. We maybe didn't always realize we were learning, because you're doing the thing, you're trying to get the next client. So, but actually, we kept telling ourselves we're so early in blockchain, so super early in blockchain. So, and for that reason, we've actually learned a lot over the last 5 years, and we're starting now to pivot towards building products that we know our clients want, rather than just building things from scratch. And I think that that's going to get enterprises and medium to large companies going and up and running much quicker.
Absolutely. Thank you for the small background. I know that you did work in a lot of these big firms throughout your whole career. And that's actually a good little pivot into our first question. Keeping in mind all these places you've worked, financial institutions, a few of them being like Credit Suisse, Bank of England, and Virgin Money. Yeah, so a lot of big names. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to be had there, a lot of cool people you might have met. And keeping in mind your career journey, what was one of the most challenging moments in your career, and how did you navigate through it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, when we say career, for me, we're always in a career. I know one can always get a bit hung up, like career means the day job, or the 9 to 5. And then when we, if we get the chance to migrate to entrepreneurship, that's called something else. But, without splitting hairs, it's just your work history and your work experience. And so I think one of my biggest challenges over the years really has been to pivot, though, out of, I guess, full-time employment to my own company. Tried it many times, failed many times, until this company, which I started about 5 years ago, which I've been able to really stay in. And I mean, I could go into more detail about those challenges, but I think it's one of the hardest parts is we do what we're used to doing.
Yeah.
So we're used to the work, and we can say, oh, okay, we're comfortable with the salary. It makes us feel secure. We're comfortable with all these different things that a salary offers. But really, even if you get past that, which I did, and actually went out as a sort of an independent consultant, what happened was I kept finding myself back in the same place because we're so used to working in a similar way,
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing: my advice around that would just be, you have to keep taking steps forward. And if it doesn't really matter if you take a few steps back, because you're one of the few that's always moving forward. So yeah, I think that's been one of our biggest challenges is moving from kind of traditional salaried employment to entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. I really love your focus on the keep moving forward in the face of failure because I feel like that is there's not a lot of secrets in this type of work. And if you're starting your own company and you really just have to be willing to fail. And the people who make it out are the ones that kept moving. I love
Yeah.
it's the best lesson. And I love that often I'm talking to founders and CEOs and the same things come up. It makes it all make sense. That's wonderful.
Yeah. One of the tricky things with that, though, is failure is only defined by what you define as success. so, so the
Brilliant.
problem with that is that what do you define as success? Because actually, I come from a big background where we always said, and myself included, failing often is good because then you learn often. But actually, I think that eventually you get to a space where everything just feels like learning. There is no failure because you're not really, you're just learning and moving forward. You're not trying to create a false expectation of what can happen, if that makes sense. And
Really.
so yeah, I think you can go really beyond that and define your own success, which might be, hey, if I get one client this year, that's great.
Right. Everybody's got a different scale. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
I agree. The learning thing too is this is all going in the notes. Continuous and genuine curiosity is also a character trait of so many success. Again, how do you define a successful person? Um, I think a successful person is always somebody that's willing to learn and does it every single day when they wake up. Um, Talking a little bit about learning and things you've done at Rewired, what is something that you did that was an unconventional approach and led to an unexpected success, which you can also define success might be helpful in this scenario?
yeah. I think this is particularly, as I talk through this, I might think of some examples, but this is particularly relevant for us right now. I think that um, I think that sometimes we plan too much. We even strategize too much. And the reason I say that is because, you always say, oh, well, okay, you could take an agile approach and plan and then reset and plan and reset. Um, but but I've found a lot of unexpected success in not necessarily planning, um, in detail, moving forward, because especially as a founder, as a CEO, really what's the most important to a large extent is the vision. And you see this with some successful entrepreneurs, that they focus on the vision because your biggest, one of your biggest challenges is, and you need to figure out a way to get there, is to trust that if you have the right vision, your people are gonna rally behind that, and the
Yeah.
plans and the strategy will follow. Um, But visions, because of their inherent nature, they don't specifically actually have sort of detailed plans and strategies, means that you become really flexible because, you know, there is no straight line to the vision.
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
is no, yeah.
Yeah.
And so even right now, I can tell you just this week, I I did the mistake of well, I did the good thing of doing the vision, but I did the mistake of starting to plan around that. And I was like, wow, there I am doing it again. And there's so many unknowns, so many unknowns. You know, we're starting to build systems that create really a framework and a structure and governance and infrastructure for the future of things like AI, um, things that bring together robotics, and obviously things like AI and both, kind of the kind of payment side as well around financial services. So there's a lot that the world needs in terms of new structure, and it's so easy to imagine what that is. And here's the thing: you actually will probably wind up, and I always like the analogy of a sailboat or a yacht. Yes, you are going from A to B, that's your vision, but you're not going to get there in a straight line. And actually that means that you might even have sort of directional visions in between that get you, to the promised land. So
Absolutely.
so yeah.
That's no, it's a great answer, and it's also almost a little bit funny coming from a consulting. So someone with so much consulting background as you, and Rewired is kind of originally meant to be a consulting firm. And I know that you're pivoting, but so much focus and talk about the business plan, the business plan. When I was in school, everybody talked about the business plan, and you had to make mock business plans. And my favorite professor, shout out Len Green, he always said, write your business plan on a piece of toilet paper because you're not going to need it. I love the focus on the vision because that's where the money is. It really like I even will say it now. My boss now, her vision is it keeps me moving forward and it changes every week and it's a wonderful thing. And those are the people that really go far is because they have that vision and they're flexible enough to let it ebb and flow with the way of the water.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that though from somebody who is helping other people strategize for their own companies. So it's important for others to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, what are some goals that you have for Rewired and how do you plan on getting there on your journey we just talked about?
Yeah. Yeah. We're uh, we've had a kind of restructure of the company this last year. So we're looking at, building our team and all of that. But we will still have consulting as a focus because, like I said
Mhm.
earlier, without that, it's difficult to get systems in, especially in larger organizations, because things don't just get into they don't get deployed in a company by accident. You need you need a lot of management around that, a lot of change management, transformation, um, taking people along the journey. But I think, as I said earlier, we're seeing a huge opportunity to build out um, you know um, uh, applications
Mhm.
for corporations, um, and there is a future vision around bringing what I think is a freer, fairer internet. I think the centralized place we've got to on the internet now um, has to pivot. I think that it was needed to get us to where we are now, but um, we're a strong believer of moving towards that decentralized future, because you reduce the points of failure. You reduce in the system. The internet started out as a very decentralized thing, but lots of things have become very centralized. And so we think, just like the days of internet and intranet, we think that there's a great opportunity to build out corporate applications as the intranet for the future. And those who don't remember those terms,
Yeah. Thank you.
Back in the day, intranet with an RA, I think, was really just the internet, but in a different kind of more secure profile for companies. What's actually happened is most of that has actually gone out to cloud hosting, which is in quotes private-ish, but not really secure. And so we believe, and we see a big shift pressured by cybersecurity incidences, which are going completely ballistic at the moment. Whole infrastructures, whole governments, healthcare in particular, infrastructure is under attack. And that's because effectively the internet has become a sea of honeypots, to use a crypto term. And the honeypot is no longer just crypto. If you're into crypto, you can kind of Google about that. But the honeypot is also data and holding companies to ransom for their data, for their honey, I guess. And so, based on that, we just see a huge opportunity in our first kind of stage of the vision to really create a more secure corporate infrastructure, private infrastructure, secure infrastructure, using the advantages of decentralization, using the advantages of cryptography that comes with blockchain, and taking security to the next level. Where the world's going right now, those infrastructure, including the internet, which is something we're looking at to the not too far future as well, is just going to be continuously under attack, and it looks like it's on a trajectory just to get worse. So we need something else to take us through the next 5 to 10 years at least.
Absolutely, I agree. And when you were mentioning helping build out this infrastructure, are you even talking about bringing blockchain technologies to data companies that need it, or to companies in general that have data? Every online company has data, obviously, but is that also what you're discussing?
Do you mean like, well, I mean, yeah. So like every corporation obviously has sensitive data. I think that some companies or corporations are more motivated to secure that data than others for various reasons. Obviously, on the extreme end, you might have a government organization, defense, for example, would be on the one end. And then, I mean, we've even seen companies that just want to write stuff to chain to be able to use in a court case. Actually, we had one client that wanted to write all tweets that happen on an account to chain, because people would troll and abuse people and then delete the messages, and then maybe you don't have a record of it. But that would be a way of saying legally, hey, on this day this happened, we've written it to an immutable blockchain.
Okay, cool.
Guess what? We can use that in a court of law. Not that all courts of law fully there isn't a huge amount of case law using blockchain as a secure source of referencing data, but it's very easy to create a case around it, and the case law is just going to come in huge amounts, I think, going forward.
Absolutely. And sorry to drill in, I know we're going a little bit over. Are you in a rush?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Is all companies that are using data for whatever it may be, are you finding that everybody's pretty convinced that blockchain technology is the best, and obviously everybody's moving towards it, but Are you finding anybody that's rejecting it a little bit? Or is everybody pretty much open to these solutions as the problem solver for issues they're having?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is we're just so way at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
We've been saying that, the thing is, we've been saying that for 8 years, but
Yeah.
the curve is so flat until it
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah.
And I really think, if you take the use case of financial services for blockchain, I think it's fair to say that curve is moving up. But if you
Yeah.
look at blockchain in the use case of cybersecurity, we are really, really, really in the early stages.
Yeah.
And so the answer to your question is, it's a hard space to be in. There is no there is no necessarily direction or consistent
Yep.
idea of what that would look like. But I think that's where we see our future is to start providing that vision. And
Mhm.
it will take time. And there's nothing's perfect either, but it will take time, and we have to build it for people to see it, because one of our biggest challenges has been leading with blockchain, because you know uh, really people buy business solutions. They don't buy a tech just for the sake
Yeah.
of tech. you know um, Chat GPT is popular because of how people interacted with it and realized what it could do. Otherwise, who cares about AI, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I loved in a recent LinkedIn post, I talked a little bit about the use cases of blockchain and that, I mean, one way to think about it was that email's the use case for the internet that got people to use the internet, and Bitcoin cryptocurrency is the use case for blockchain technology. It's making everybody aware that isn't involved in technology necessarily. People in my life that would never be
Yeah.
interested in, yeah, that type of technical stuff.
Yeah, I would add to that,
Yeah,
an interesting perspective I think that we're going to see, though, is um, you know the internet has largely been based on the TCP/IP protocol. In fact, it hasn't changed very much,
yeah,
and that's why there is a need for a new robust internet, which starts to take that a step further and starts to create a protocol around different areas. So yes, something like Bitcoin has a financial protocol that people are using. But I think we're going to see, and this is where we're going to focus, is
yeah,
all the other kind of protocols that will be closer towards the infrastructure of the internet, rather than abstracted to a web level where the level like the level of foundational concreteness to what you're doing kind of becomes vague.
yeah,
And you're not really building on a future infrastructure that's going to last.
absolutely. That's a great additional point. I really, I would like to do some more research on that. So this is kind of on top of this, talking more about problems you're seeing within the companies you're working with. What are common problems you're seeing, and what advice do you have for emerging startups in the industry?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges that we've always worked on, if we're talking now specifically startups, then one of the biggest challenges we've had is um, we've generally been successful. Is uh, we've encouraged startups to rather build something that has value before maybe committing regulatory suicide, specifically
Mm,
on the more financial side.
yeah,
And there's two reasons for that. Is um, uh, people follow the shiny thing, the money part, so they jump into that part. and it can create the wrong vision. The other reason is regulation is changing all the time, and it is maturing, and we've seen it maturing, even if it looks like it's going to get killed every half a second. We've
Yeah.
now seen like the Bitcoin ETF, so we're seeing things happen and going in the right direction. And it takes time to do a startup, and in that phase, within 2 years, suddenly there's regulatory clarity, at least in part of what they're trying to build. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, they're actually able to invest in that. So what we do is we build out a regulatory roadmap that runs alongside the build phase and starts to say, okay, how can I move forward, not get regulatory exposure, but still keep moving forward?
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate, say the flip side of that, we underestimate uh, how much regulatory approval, when you do get it, brings legitimacy to your business.
Mhm.
And we're starting to see the first ones in that space, like in the real world asset space, where they've been really sweating blood and tears for the last 5 years trying to get regulatory approval. But now that they have it, they're going to be infinitely ahead and more valuable than any other company out there.
Absolutely. It's great, and it's the advice. I think I was actually reading some of your case studies you had on your website, for some of the companies you've worked on, and I just find all this so fascinating, and especially in a place like blockchain. Obviously, there's a lot of traditional consulting firms that have been around for decades, and we get reports, and a lot of the world statistics come from these big consulting companies. But I love hearing about trends and what you can do to kind of, I mean, position yourself in the right place where you can still get advice from others, but also like get some clarity on what you're doing, because it's easy to get fogged in the vision. Yeah, but thank you for the advice. And
Yeah,
that will be in a shortened little section on my LinkedIn post.
yeah, no problem.
And last two questions here. These are fun ones. Torben, what is your favorite book?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a book here. Obviously, uh, this is uh, this is a great book that I've recently read. I think I think that it's hard to say what's your favorite book, because you know as you're learning and you learn in the journey of life, you're always finding different things. Um, the Bible for me is a solid foundation. It's the one book I can say will never change. Um, but the other one that has been a huge inspiration is this one, Crossing the Chasm. You probably can't see it, but it's by Jeffrey Moore.
Mhm.
It's all about high-tech startups, and given this topic, um, it talks about like all the high-tech stuff during the 80s and 90s and how to bridge the chasm from like an emerging tech, which is what we've been
Yeah,
talking about during this time. And it does such a great job of just helping you explain really what does marketing mean, how do you actually get mass adoption. And so this has been my kind of technology Bible lately, for me. So I really value it, and it's actually pretty old, but history repeats itself.
it
And
does.
so, and plus, I went through the era that a lot of this talks about, and having the opportunity to do it again, but in a whole different universe of blockchain, crypto, and other things, is really fascinating.
That's very cool. And I love doing research on old ways that the internet was able to be mass
Yes.
adopted. And I'm always, the mass adoption thing is something I've been hyper fixating on a little bit. I will have to read that book because I am always trying to look at old examples of how that happened in the 90s and 80s, actually.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And last question here. What is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for you? It's a big question,
Hmm.
but nice way to end an interview.
Yeah, some people spring to mind, but I think one of the very underestimated things um, is mentoring or discipleship in any context. What I mean is somebody giving their time, um, and quite generously sometimes, in my experience, to get to share what basically share all the wisdom and learning that they've experienced in their own journey. We so often think people got to where they got to because, I don't know, right time, right place. I don't know. I don't think that's a thing, unless maybe the lottery. But it's and even then, there's probably a reason you've got all that money. So use it wisely, or learn from what you're about to do that you should not have done. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But I think really people giving time and mentoring people is so valuable, and it's humbling. And I think that I think it's something that I would like to suggest should grow, make a big comeback. Um, just to give your time freely to support somebody and help them and ask great questions and coach them through things, I think is very valuable.
Well, Torben, thank you very much. First of all, for spending the time to talk with me. It means a lot. I said it in the last interview, my favorite lessons in school were when my professors would bring in entrepreneurs and CEOs to talk, and I loved asking them questions. I did it every time. So genuinely, thank you for being here today and taking a good half hour to chat with me. It means a lot, genuinely. Thank you.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it, and great to meet you.
Torben, it was wonderful to meet you. Everybody, I will be posting this interview on my LinkedIn, and I will be also tagging Rewired.one in their website. You can check out some of the companies they work for on there, and follow them as they go through this pivotal growth stage. Torben, thank you for this wonderful time. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I'll be chatting with you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.